Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. A lot to talk about again this week. I don't even know where to start. There's so much happening. Dominaria United just came out. A lot of players are building new commander decks around some of those cards. That's sparking interest in a number of different cards in the secondary market. We had Warhammer 40k commander deck previews last week, and of course those previews are sparking interest in a lot of different cards. And now we're in the middle of Infinity previews, and more than half that set is Eternal Legal. Because of all that, we're going to look at a wide variety of cards moving this week, and we do have a $2 threshold again for the video. We're not going to talk about a card unless it's moving at least $2 up or down. Quickly, before we get into the details though, just a fast reminder, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pre-order Infinity products there, but they have a whole lot of other things on their website as well. Remember, if your order's over $100 or consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use the Heroes promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated. So thank you, and without any further ado, let's get into it. We're going to begin, as we always do, with the standard legal spotlight. These are the standard legal cards moving the most this week. First, we have Graveyard Trespasser. This is up 310 this week to 1313, but it is the Innistrad double feature copy. And it's hard to find this one online right now. The asking prices are really what's driving this price more than anything. I don't think anybody's truly spending this on the card right now. If you look at the Innistrad Midnight Hunt copy, it's much cheaper and also a lot easier to find. Of course, that set had a wider release. And there were 3 copies of that version of the card in the Dimir Control Standard Challenger deck that came out earlier this year. When it comes to gameplay, this does see a lot of play in the new Standard. It is in 2 popular decks there, Mono Black and Rakdos Midrange, as well as others. In Pioneer, it's in a couple popular decks there too, Rakdos Midrange and Abzan Greasefang, plus it's in other decks in that format as well. It also gets a little commander play, but it does appear at times in a couple builds around new cards from Dominaria United. Sheoldred the Apocalypse, and Braid's Arisen Nightmare. Next is Wedding Announcement. This time it's the one from Innistrad Crimson Vow. It goes up 535 this week to 969. In Standard, this is an Esper as well as Orzhov Midrange and much more. Pioneer, you're going to see this one in Mono White as well as Orzhov Humans. And the Mono White version of that deck is seeing a good amount of play right now in the format. Plus, this currently gets a little commander play. However, it could be a decent upgrade to one of the Warhammer 40k commander decks. The deck I'm thinking of is called Forces of the Imperium, which does have an aggressive go-wide theme. Here is the front-facing commander for that deck on the left side, Inquisitor Greyfax. On the right is another legendary creature in Esper colors that's included, Marneus Kelgar. Next is Sheoldred the Apocalypse. This is a new card from Dominaria United. It is jumping up 557 this week to 5435, and it's because it's seeing a lot of play already. In Standard, this too is in the Mono Black mid-range build. Also, it's in Grixis Midrange, another very popular deck right now, and many other decks in the format. It's also shaping up to be a highly played commander early on, and it's in the 99 in many builds too, old and new ones, including Nekusar the Mindraiser. And the last card in this section is the Meathook Massacre. The Innistrad Midnight Hunt copy goes up $573 this week to $74, where the Innistrad double feature copy is up $1335 to $81.59. Again, most likely a little inflated due to the fact that those copies are harder to find online right now. But there is a reason this card is as hot as it is. It's getting a ton of play in this new post-rotation Standard. You're going to see this in big decks that we mentioned earlier. Mono Black, Grixis Midrange, and many other builds. In Pioneer, this is in Mono Black Devotion. This is also seeing an increased amount of commander play now and builds around some Dominaria United cards. Ellisil, Corsadistic Pilgrim, Sheoldred the Apocalypse, Braid's Arisen Nightmare, Zur Eternal Schemer, and Ratadrabik of Urborg. Plus, this could be a good upgrade to one of the Warhammer 40k commander decks. Necron Dynasties is the deck I'm thinking of this time. It has a sacrifice theme. And here's the front-facing commander on the left side, Zarek the Silent King. And on the right side is another legendary creature that you find in the build, Illuminor Azurus. That takes us to the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. This time we do have some cards going down as well as some moving up. Our first one moving down is Sarkhan Unbroken from Dragons of Tarkir. It goes down $232 this week to $24. So this jumped recently due to the support the Dragon Tribe did receive from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate as well as Dominaria United. Now though, the market is starting to move on from dragons and this is retracting, although there's one exception you're going to see later in the video. In Commander, this is in Dragon builds like the Dragon, and I have seen some building Dragon decks around the front-facing Commander from the Painbow Commander deck, Jared Carthalion, and including Sarkhan Unbroken. Here's another Dragon moving down. This is Old Gnawbone, but this is the copy from the list. It joined the list with Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. It is still there now for Dominaria United. This goes down $3 to $37.24. Also, there is a copy of Old Gnawbone in the Beetle and Grimm's Here Be Dragon's Secret Lair, so the market has seen an influx in this creature recently. Aside from those extra printings, though, this is also retracting since, like I said a moment ago, the market is moving on a little bit from dragons. This is in many Commander builds, including the Dragon. Grim Tutor from Starter 1999. This one goes down $308 this week to $76.98. And this was recently reprinted again in another Secret Lair, this time the Fortnite one. It does get a lot of Commander play though, and it is getting more now in a couple new builds. Sheoldred the Apocalypse and Jodah the Unifier. You're going to hear a lot of that name today. Jodah the Unifier has been a very popular build a lot of players are putting together right now, and that deck is moving a lot of cards in the secondary market. Last card moving down in this section is Emrakul, the Promised End. It goes down $4.19 this week to $71.57. This was jumping aggressively not too long ago, but now it continues to retract and find its price point based on the amount of play it's currently seeing. Modern, though, was the main reason it was hot recently. Omnith Locus of Creation builds have been performing very well, and this is found in those. This is also an Amulet Titan and more there. It gets some Commander play too, usually in Kozilek the Great Distortion, but it is getting additional play now in Jodah the Unifier decks as well. The Great Henge, this is up $288 this week to $62.05. Popular Commander card in many builds, including new ones like Jodah the Unifier and Baru Wormspeaker, which is one of the Eternal Legal cards from Dominaria United. I've also seen this in some Rith Liberated Primeval decks too. Isika God of the Tree is up $356 to $1565. This has been a popular Commander and found in the 99 in many builds, but now it is getting even more play because you guessed it, the support that came for legendary spells in Dominaria United. It is in that popular new Jodah the Unifier deck, and it's also a good upgrade to the Painbow Commander deck, and showing up in fresh builds around Jared Carthalion and Jensen Carthalion Druid Exile from there. Next is Renata Call to the Hunt, but this is the one from the list. It goes up $422 to $22.27. It was only there for Strixhaven, and it is very hard to find in the secondary market right now online. Again, this price is exaggerated because of high asking prices and very few examples of sales. So take it with a grain of salt, but there are reasons you may want a copy of this card. It was always a decent Commander card in a variety of builds, including Shishero the Shattered Blade, but now it is seeing more play in some of those Jodah the Unifier decks, and this will be a good upgrade to one of the Warhammer 40k Commander decks as well. This time the deck is Tyranid Swarm, and I am seeing this in early deck lists around the front-facing Commander from there as well, the Swarm Lord. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, again the copy from the list. It goes up $431 this week to $42.34. This was in the list for Modern Horizons 2 through Innistrad Crimson Vow. Sees a lot of play. In Pioneer, this is in Rakdos Midrange and Sacrifice, plus other decks. In Modern, it's in Yawgmoth, 8-Rack, and more. Legacy, you see this amount of Black Depths, Colorless Cloudpost, amount of Black Control. Plus, it is a huge Commander card in many builds, including some new ones like Sheoldred the Apocalypse, Jodah the Unifier, Braids Arisen Nightmare, and Ratadrabik of Urborg. It's also a good upgrade to the Legends Legacy Commander deck and shows up in some fresh builds around the front-facing Commander from there, the Hadabinder of Wills. And the last card in this section is Mox Amber. It goes up $441 this week to $65.99. This is in Modern Izzet and Jeskai Breach, and those decks are performing pretty well right now in the format. In fact, Izzet came in first and Jeskai came in third in a recent Star City Games Modern 20K. When it comes to the Commander, though, this is another card you might see in Jodah the Unifier, and it's also in Muria, Scholar of Antiquity, another new deck. And I have seen this used as an upgrade to the Legends Legacy deck and added to new builds around Dihada. That takes us to the Modern Legal Spotlight. Again, a bunch of cards going down, some going up. First is Grave Pact. This is the copy from Commander Anthology Volume 2. It goes down $2.03 to $30. This is retracting after some recent increases. Solid Commander card in many builds, including a couple new ones. Braids Arisen Nightmare and Ratadrabik of Urborg. Windswept Heath. This is the original one from Onslaught. It's going down $2.26 this week to $60.15. Another card retracting after a recent small jump, but it is a fetch land, so you know it's going to see a lot of play in a lot of places. Modern, this is an Omnith Locus of Creation builds. This is also in Domain Zoo, which has been performing really well and gaining momentum. We'll talk about that deck later, and it's in other builds in the format. Legacy, this is in Naya Depths, Elves, and more there. Vintage, it's in Hogak, and it is a huge commander land too. You see this in new builds like Joda the Unifier and Hazazan Shaper of Sand. That is one of the Dominaria United box toppers. Alright, here's another one. Wooded Foothills, the original copy from Onslaught, down 248 to 73.24. Very similar story here. This is retracting after some recent increases. It also gets a lot of play in a lot of places. In Modern, this is an Omnith Focus of Creation builds, also Indomitable Creativity decks, plus others. In Legacy, this is in Elves, Selesnya Depths, and more. Sometimes you see this in Vintage Hogak, and it is another big commander land. Shows up in lots of new builds too, including Joda the Unifier, Soul of Windgrace, Muria Scholar of Antiquity, and Hazazan Shaper of Sand. Cavern of Souls, the copy from the list is down 215 to 67.75. That was in the list from Kaldheim through Crimson Vow. The Avacyn Restored copy is down 296 to 66.94. So the reason this card is losing value is because it was reprinted in Double Masters 2022 not too long ago. With that being said, sees a ton of play. In Modern, this is an Amulet Titan, Merfolk, and much more. Legacy, it's in Doomsday, Goblins, and more there. Vintage, you see this in Esper Aggro, and it is a huge commander card too in many builds, including the Ur-Dragon. Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, another card reprinted in Double Masters 2022, and look what's happening. Rise of the Eldrazi down 213 to 51.77, Ultimate Masters down 251 to 39.95, and Modern Masters 2015 down 312 to 45.86. This is in many commander decks, including Kozilek the Great Distortion. Kozilek Butcher of Truth, the copy from Modern Masters 2015, goes down $334 this week to $50. This was in the list for Strixhaven and Modern Horizons 2, but it was also reprinted in Double Masters 2022. In Modern, sometimes you see this in Mono Green Tron. It is also a solid commander card in lots of decks, including Kozilek the Great Distortion, and I have seen this in some Joda the Unifier builds now too. Renin 6, guess what? This was reprinted in Double Masters 2022. The Modern Horizons copy goes down $291 this week to $65.61. The copy from the list goes down $367 to $72.19. This was part of the list for Zendikar Rising and Kaldheim. Now, even though this is going down, it does see a lot of play. In Modern, this is an Omnith Locus of Creation builds, Indomitable Creativity decks, and much more. Vintage, you see this in Oath of Druids, and it is seeing more commander play now around some new cards. Soul of Windgrace, Hazazan Shaper of Sand, Joda the Unifier, and it is also a good upgrade to the Painbow commander deck, and in fresh builds around Jared Carthalion from there. And the last card moving down this week is Denizen of the Deep. This is the one from Portal Second Age. It goes down $631 this week to $14.88. This copy has been very turbulent, and even though it is going down, the price is still inflated due to scarcity online. No one's paying this for the card. It does get a tad bit of commander play. Scion of Draco. This goes up $290 to $698. Now, this is the copy from Modern Horizons 2. It was just added to the list with Dominaria United. I don't know if a lot of people realize that yet. Remember, that set did bring back Domain, which is the reason this is moving the way it is. I do want to point out too, this is a dragon, but not moving because it's a dragon. The card that I was teasing earlier is still coming later in the video. In Modern, this is in Domain Zoo, and like I said earlier, that deck has been performing well and gaining momentum. It runs 2 cards from Dominaria United, Nishoba Brawler, and Leyline Binding. You also see Scion of Draco and Calibrated Blast in Modern. Beyond that, the card does get a good amount of commander play too. It's in the Ur-Dragon and other builds in the format. You're seeing this in some new decks too, like Joda the Unifier and Niall Evazoa Aeronaut. Plus, it is a good upgrade to the Painbow deck, and in fresh builds around Jared Carthalion and Jensen Carthalion Druid Exile from there. Flusterstorm, the original one from Commander, goes up $326 this week to $33.99. Big sideboard card in Modern and can show up in main decks and sideboards in Legacy and Vintage. It's a good answer to Storm strategies, and those have been more popular recently. In Modern, you see this in Murktide Regent, Omnith Locus of Creation builds, and much more. Legacy, it's in 5-color Zenith, Jeskai Control, and more there. In Vintage, you see this in 4-color Tinker, Sultai Midrange, and more in that format. And it does get a good amount of commander play too. You see this in Urzalor High Artificer, and many other decks. I've even seen it at times in Joda the Unifier. Doubling Season back again. The Double Masters copy up $212 this week to $92.89. The Modern Masters copy goes up $440 to $96.70. This is a huge commander card. It's in lots of builds, including Atraxa Praetor's Voice, and this is in a number of new commander builds too, including Ivy Gleeful Spell Thief, and Joda the Unifier, and it is another good upgrade to Painbow and in fresh builds around Jared Carthalion. Another reason this is moving though is because whenever you have new Magic products come out, guess what? There's always some cards that play well with this in there. As a matter of fact, this will be a great upgrade to the Warhammer 40k Commander deck Tyrannid Swarm. We saw the front-facing commander earlier, but many creatures have the Ravenous keyword on the card, and they're really going to appreciate Doubling Season. Let's look at some examples. I put 10 on the screen. These are all cards from that deck that have Ravenous. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these, but feel free to pause the video if you want a closer look and you want to read through some of these cards. Now I have one more card with Ravenous that could not fit on the slide, so I'll put it up now. And there are plenty of other cards that will play well with Doubling Season, not only within the deck, but also in the other 3 decks. Don't forget too, we have Infinity previews happening this week. More than half the cards in the set are Eternal Legal. And guess what? We got some examples already of cards that will be good with Doubling Season. Now, again, they don't necessarily always match color identity when we look at these examples, but all these cards are Eternal Legal and do have synergy with Doubling Season. Additionally, Doubling Season was mentioned in a couple episodes of the Command Zone podcast this week, which could have brought some attention to the card too. Marilyn of the Morn Song. This goes up 502 this week to 2567, and it's been a while. It's been a real long time, but I think I see a Morning Tide rare that is yet to be reprinted. I haven't had my one per video in a long time, so I'm going to take advantage. Now, if you watch the series for a while, you know that during this time period of Magic, there was a recession in the game, less packs were cracked. So some of these rares, especially ones that were never reprinted, they tend to get a little spiky when people pay attention to them. So what's going on with this card? Well, it is a fairly popular commander. It's in the 99 of some decks too. The Marlin decks typically run Opposition Agent, but now there's some new cards that are enhancing those builds. Things like Braids of Risen Nightmare, Pact Weapon, and Black Market Connections. Cezanne, Perverter of Truth, is the last card in this section. It's going up 919 this week to 4345. And this is getting a big push because of a new commander deck, and that is, of course, Sheoldred the Apocalypse. Additionally, though, one of the Warhammer commander decks is pushing this to a degree as well. The Ruinous Powers deck does have a demon sub-theme, and you could add this as an upgrade. Here's a legendary creature in the deck that you might want to build around if you're leaning into the demon theme. Be'lakor the Dark Master. That takes us to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Legacy, Vintage, also cards that are popular among collectors this week. Prices in this section, at least at times, might be a little more reminiscent of what you might see on a price tracking website, because at least for some of these cards, they don't have a very high print run. You don't necessarily see a ton of them all the time in the secondary market. So we do have to lean a little bit harder on asking price, at least for some examples. Additionally, when it comes to the older, more iconic Magic cards, the price you see on the screen might fall somewhere in between the price of a high-grade raw and high-grade graded copy. Now, if that price isn't sitting at least close in the middle between those two types of cards, or just generally the price you see isn't matching what I'm seeing for recent sales, I'll point that out. Mox Opal for Modern Masters 2015. This goes up 267 this week to 7776. It sees a lot of play in Legacy. It's in Painter, 8 Cast, and more. Vintage, you see this in Paradoxical Outcome. And this is in a lot of commander decks, including some new ones. Maria, Scholar of Antiquity, and Tetsuo, Imperial Champion. That one's a box topper. Necropotence. This is the Deckmasters Garfield vs. Finkel copy. Only comes in foil, this particular one. It goes up 275 this week to 105.98. You see this in Vintage Doomsday, and it's found in a good number of commander decks, including a new one again, Torwoki the Younger, which is another box topper. I have seen some picking this up as an upgrade to one of the Warhammer 40k commander decks too. Again, that deck is the Ruinous Powers. And there's some early deck lists that showcase fresh builds around the front-facing commander from that deck, including this card as well. Let's take a look at that front-facing commander. It is Abaddon the Despoiler. Additionally, Necropotence did get a mention on the Command Zone podcast this week as well. Ancient Tomb, the copy from the list, is up $2.29 this week to $70.28. It was in the list from Midnight Hunt through Neon Dynasty. The Ultimate Masters copy is up $3.23 to $68.94. Legacy, this isn't a lot of decks. It's in Painter, Mono Red Prison. Those Mono Red Prison decks are seeing a little more play because of a new card from Dominaria United. That is Squee Dubious Monarch. And this is in a lot of other Legacy decks too. In Vintage, you see this in Prison Shops, Aggro Shops, and Goblins. Plus, it is a big Commander mana-based card. It's in many different builds, including new ones again. Joda the Unifier, Sheoldred the Apocalypse, Maria, Scholar of Antiquity, and Torwoki the Younger. Scrubland, the copy from Revised, goes up $4.20 this week to $354. Mana Crypt, the Eternal Masters copy is up $3.90 to $196.94. The Mystery Booster copy is up $4.35 to $187.82. Now, Wizards did sell some more Mystery Booster Convention Edition boxes as part of a Secret Lair bundle called Festival in a Box, so there could be more copies of this coming. Very popular card, though. In Vintage, it's in 4-color Tinker, Prison Chops, and more. It's in a lot of Commander builds, too, including some new ones. Shieldred the Apocalypse, Joda the Unifier, and Murray, a Scholar of Antiquity. And it is a good upgrade to the Heads I Win, Tails You Lose Secret Lair Commander deck. Those have been delayed for quite some time, but when they finally do arrive, there could be some additional interest in this card. Grim Monolith, this goes up $5.41 this week to $297.99. In Legacy, this is in the Epic Gamble and Colorless Cloud Post. It is also found in a number of different Commander builds, including a new one, Murray, a Scholar of Antiquity. Chrome Mox, the Eternal Masters copy up $2.48 to $86.24. The Double Masters copy up $6.05 to $88.06. This is in Legacy Mono Red Prison. Like I said earlier, that deck is doing better now. It's also in Oops All Spells and more there. Vintage, you see this in Oops All Spells in that format. Plus, this gets a lot of Commander play, and it's getting more now in Joda the Unifier and Murray, a Scholar of Antiquity. Alright, this mountain came back. The one we're talking about is the one you see on the screen from Battle Royale. It goes up $8.02 this week to $18.97 in theory. Last week we discussed this at length. Basically, long story short, looks like somebody just wanted to buy a whole bunch of this particular basic land out of the secondary market all at the same time. Maybe they were adding it to a deck or a couple decks. And when a card disappears quickly, leaving only the very high-priced copies in the marketplace, you see this artificial inflation. Typically, it doesn't last too long because more copies enter the marketplace and the price will quickly go back down. This week, however, it looks like more copies left the marketplace. Typically, when this does happen, it usually happens with white border basics. Some players prefer those because they do stand out when you fetch. Damping Field, this goes up $11.09 to $31.60, and we have seen a number of Antiquities cards, not just reserve list cards, but a number of cards from this set moving up recently. They have definitely been part of targeted buyouts. Kobold Overlord up $12.69 this week to $139.24. So more copies of this are getting out there since Legends cards are in Dominaria United collector booster boxes. Ultimately, though, when it comes to any one card, I don't think you're going to see a big ripple in the marketplace. This one is moving up, and it is moving up because there's more Kobold support in Dominaria United. The two cards I'm referring to are both Eternal Legal cards, Rosnak Darav Roga and Roga Kirkheap Overlord. That one's a box topper. Palladium Wars from Legends. Now, this is another card that could show up in a Dominaria United collector booster pack. It's going up $13.11 this week, though, to $80. Also, this is in the new Showcase Dominaria Secret Lair as well. Here's another Antiquities card. This one is not on the reserve list. It's been pretty hot recently, though. Again, it is the target of a buyout. Hurkyl's Recall. It's up $14.19 to $137.37. Berserk from Unlimited up $14.59 to $156.61. Lord of the Pit from Unlimited up $30.15 to $130. Guardian Beast. This is the first of 3 Arabian Nights reserve list cards all in a row in this section. The question is, are they really moving the way they appear to be moving? This one's up $150 to $1,599.99. Is that for real? Well, high-grade Raws have been selling for just over $1,000. I have not seen any high-grade graded copies sell for a while, but when one does, it would have to be in pretty high grade to hit this price point. Library of Alexandria is next. It goes up $630 to $4,875. In reality, this price might be a bit high. High-grade Raws can break $2,200. A graded 9 sold not too long ago for $4,500. Juzam Jin is up $724 to $4,999.99. Is that for real? Well, high-grade Raws can break about $2,500. Graded 9s have recently sold for about $3,000. So yeah, this price is inflated. For the last card in this section, I wanted to include a card that, has been flying under the radar for a while. Something I thought maybe we all could afford. This is Black Lotus from Unlimited. Perhaps you've heard of it. It goes up $2,250.01 to $24,250. Okay, is that real? Well, I can tell you a very high-grade raw copy sold recently for about this price. Power 9 prices are really hard to nail down. Basically, they're worth whatever somebody's willing to pay that week. You just don't see that many sales, especially high-grade sales. The increases and decreases you typically see week to week are usually based more on changes in asking price or the changes in the inventory in the marketplace. Any given week, the grades and the amount of graded versus raw copies can vary. Alright, that's going to take us to the Commander Spotlight. In this section, all the cards are moving, at least in part because of Commander, but there could be some other factors too. And in some cases, Commander might not even be the key driver. I'll let you know, though, as we go through. Gemstone Caverns, this is the copy from Time Spiral Remastered. It goes up 202 this week to 42.59. This was in the list for Adventures in the Forgotten Realms through Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It is seeing more Commander play now, and some new builds, including Maria, Scholar of Antiquity, and Joda the Unifier. Modern, you'll see this in Crashing Footfalls, Calibrated Blast, and more. Ball Lightning, the original copy from the Dark, goes up 219 this week to 56.99. Ball Lightning is one of the Magic 30th Anniversary promo cards, but typically, this original copy has a life of its own regardless of other printings. You might remember, we saw this drop a little bit last week. This week it rebounds. It is seeing a little more Commander play around a new card, Garna Bloodfist of Kjell, and I have seen this in early deck lists around a card in the Tyrannid Swarm Warhammer 40k Commander deck. I'll put it up on the screen. It is Deathleaper Terror Weapon. The Ozolith is next. It goes up 235 to 23.18. Here's another good upgrade to the Tyrannid Swarm Commander deck. Currently, it gets a lot of Commander play in various builds, including a Traxa Praetor's Voice. This is also in Modern, Hardened Scales, and additionally, it was mentioned on an episode of the Command Zone podcast this week as a card you might want to play with one of the new box toppers, Zyra the Golden Sting. Ultimately, though, I do think it is that Tyrannid Swarm Warhammer 40k deck that's moving this the most right now. Fury, this is up 248 this week to 29.10. This gets some Commander play in a variety of builds, including a new one, Legomos Hand of Hatred. Aside from that, it is a huge Modern card. You see this in Omnith Locus of Creation builds, Murktide Regent, and much more. Legacy, another card you see in Mono Red Prison. It's in Painter and more there. Vintage, this is in Squee Hollowvine. Here's another Mystery Booster card. This is Athreos God of Passage. It goes up 258 this week to 1465. It is a fairly popular Commander, and it is in the 99 of a number of new builds. Zur Eternal Schemer, Ratadrabic of Urborg, Joda the Unifier, Elazil Corsadistic Pilgrim, and Aren Benalia's Ruin. This was also mentioned on the Command Zone podcast this week, so again, could have brought some eyes to it. I did tease this at the start of the video. The Ur-Dragon from Commander 2017 only comes in foil, and it is the dragon that's moving up this week. It goes up 258 to 79.99. It is the most used Dragon Commander and can show up in the 99 of Dragon builds occasionally too. It did get hot when Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate as well as Dominaria United brought more support to the Dragon tribe, but in this case, it's still hot. Untaidake, the Cloudkeeper, up 264 to 999. This is another card seeing much more Commander play due to Dominaria United cards. It's a good upgrade to Legends Legacy, and it's in fresh builds around Dihada Binder of Wills and Shanted Sleeper Scourge. Plus, it is found in other new Commander builds too. Joda the Unifier, Ratadrabic of Urborg, the Peregrine Dynamo, and Kadric Soul Kindler. Well, now we have an Onslaught Fetchland moving up in value. This is Flooded Strand. It goes up 275 this week to 81.96. It's a big Commander land. It's in lots of builds, including new ones like Joda the Unifier and Zur Eternal Schemer. In Modern, you see this in Murktide Regent, Omnith Locus of Creation builds, and much more. Legacy, it's in as a Delver, Dimir Death Shadow, and more there. Vintage, 4-color Tinker, Jeskai Control, and more in that format too. Weathered Sentinels. This goes up 342 this week to 542. This is from the Streets of New Capenna Commander deck Riveteer's Rampage. It has been in a number of Commander builds, including Arcades the Strategist, where you see it most frequently. But there was a video on Card Market Magic's YouTube channel a few weeks ago where they mentioned that this is a strong Commander card that's been overlooked. Prices started to creep up then, but now it appears the online market is starting to see a shortage of the card and prices are jumping. Yoshimaru, Ever Faithful, this goes up 423 this week to 1175. This is one of the Eternal Legal cards from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It is seeing a big increase in Commander play because of Dominaria United. It's in new builds like Joda the Unifier and Ratadrabic of Urborg. It's also a good upgrade to the Legends Legacy Commander deck and in fresh builds around a couple cards from there. Dihada Enchanted again. Branching Evolution up 632 to 1739, and the reason this is moving is because it is another good upgrade to that upcoming Tyrannid Swarm Warhammer 40k Commander deck. I've also seen this in early deck lists from scratch around the Swarm Lord. Plus, remember, we did see some Eternal Legal Infinity cards that could play well with this earlier in the video too. Last card in this section is Ramos Dragon Engine. This is the Commander 2017 copy. The copy only comes in foil. It goes up $7.59 this week to $44.21. So this is one more dragon that is still going up, although not going up just because it is a dragon. There's some other factors here. It is a fairly popular commander and has been in the 99 of a number of builds, including the Dragon. But now it is seeing even more commander play because of Dominaria United. It's in builds around Joda the Unifier. It's a good upgrade to the Painbow deck. And I have seen this in builds around a couple cards from there. Again, Jared and Jensen. And that takes us to the premium spotlight. There's always premium cards jumping and crashing. There's just too much happening just generally in that part of the market to cover it all. But I like to pick out at least one card every week that I think is interesting. This week I did select 2. Now, much like in the vintage section of the video, sometimes these cards don't get a lot of sales. Sometimes there's not a lot of copies online. So I'll show you the asking price and I'll let you know how close that truly is to recent sales. The 2 cards I selected this week are cards you typically don't see graded, so we're just going to be talking about raw prices here. Ramos Dragon Engine. This is the Commander Legends etched foil copy. It goes up $21.28 to $44.80, so pretty close in price to that original copy we just saw. Now when it comes to true sales, they're selling between $25 and $30. So I do think sellers are trying to stay ahead of the spike with these prices. And the last card today is Seizan, Perverter of Truth. This is the foil copy from Champions of Kamigawa. Alright, in theory, this is up $164.94 to $225. Is that for real at all? Well, not really. Last week, high-grade raw copies were selling for $45. This week, they are close to $70. So that is a big jump, but the price you see on the screen is inflated due to some really high asking prices on cards left in the online market. That's going to do it for this episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. If you're still with me here at the end, hey, thanks. I do appreciate that. Until next time, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a great day.